Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jonathan here. Welcome to the God's Business Podcast. I am your host. And today in this episode, we talk with Flavio Quintela. He ran for office. He became a publisher, a book author, came from Brazil to the US. And his whole story about how God has worked in his life and how him leaving it up to God has provided the miracles that he needs to succeed and to continue to live life here in the USA while seeking and providing service with sales is really a great testament about how God will level you up in certain skills. And you can go from politics to authoring to really just spreading the truth and spreading the light. So in this video, we talked to Flavio, and with that, let's hear his story, and I will talk to you soon.
So I'm Flavio Quintela, engineer, writer, sales guy, all you can imagine. And this is God's Business Podcast.
I've talked to a bunch of people, and what I've noticed is there's a lot of trails or like traces of when God has like led you down a specific path, and the goal is to help bring that to light so that it may help somebody else who might be watching itself.
Yeah, so I have a long career that started way back when I used to work for Motorola, the time when Motorola was actually a synonym for cell phones.
Yes.
Everybody wanted to have a Motorola. I didn't work with the phones though. I worked with infrastructure. But there I began my career as an engineer. And then there were so many twists, like from Motorola, ended up starting a business. In Brazil, there's a lot of English schools. So they're dedicated to teach English only. So I had one of those, a franchise. I tried a political career at some point.
Really?
I ran for office in the local town.
In Brazil?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a good campaign. I ran on the platform that I would, bring some honesty and straightforwardness to local politics.
People didn't want that.
Well, I was well voted for a first timer,
Okay.
But I just got half of the votes I needed. And you could do a whole podcast just to explain how the Brazilian system works, which is super confusing. It's not like this here where you have the district and the number one voted gets the spot. So it's different.
Right.
But then I tried that, and that was a great experience because I could see, and I had to leave because of that, but I could see the actual corruption that happens even in the most local government level in Brazil. And then the moment that I was asked to do something that was not, correct, then I had to leave.
Wow.
And then from that point, I started to do consulting, working with, also started to work with sales, technical sales. And then I reached a point where I got married. And
congratulations.
Yeah.
How long is that?
That was like 13 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So then my wife was, at time, she was like not very politicized. Like, she didn't really watch a lot of news or anything like that. Then I talk a lot about politics. So she just started listening to that. And then at some point she said, why don't you write a book about this thing? Because I was already like a writer of, columns, newspaper columns.
Newspaper in Brazil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like opinion columns.
Okay.
And then she said, why don't you write a book? And then I said, well, that's actually a great idea. So then I became a writer.
Okay.
Wrote like 2 books in 2 years.
Okay.
One of them, did I show you at Amazon, my book?
Maybe a Kindle store, or is it?
No, so I have a book at Amazon. It's almost at 3,000 reviews.
Wow. Dude.
Because it's been on the market for 10 years almost.
Sure. What is the book called?
So it's in Portuguese. Translating, it would be something like They Lied to Me About Gun Control.
Wow. Okay, so really, really like out there.
Yeah.
Really, really opinionated kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's a very data-driven book.
Okay, how cool.
Because in Brazil there's a very strict gun control laws.
Okay.
But anyway,
got it.
So that took me to being like a sub celebrity in Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah, I had like 30,000 followers.
Dude,
Stuff like that.
Flavio's big dog. That's awesome. From Brazil. Those are all Brazilian Portuguese.
All Brazilian, and then that led me to meet some people that are now some of my best friends now. I met them because of that book, and I can tell you that was something that God did to me.
Yeah? Tell me more about that.
So yeah, the guy who published the book,
okay,
he is one of my best friends. He was already.
Okay. Yeah.
He is my son's godfather.
How cool. Okay.
So this guy starts this company, the publishing company. Today, he's one of the largest in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he wanted to focus on politics and philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So when my book was released, it was the same time where the presidential candidate in Brazil from the right wing, the conservative politics, he was growing in the polls and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the book, the vision of the book about gun control was very, very aligned with what he believed.
Okay.
So the book ended up in his hands.
Okay.
And then it became a very successful book.
Wow.
So then I was connected to some people.
Okay.
And these guys are now some of my best friends.
Okay.
But they're all Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people who helped me in my tough times here.
Yeah.
So I can see how God, and by the way, this is the first time I think about this, how God used that book to do a whole 360 here and connect everything.
Yeah.
And one of the guys is actually a very famous guy in Brazil. He lives here in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And he was famous, including for being in the American Congress in a deposition in one of those commissions about the some stuff that the FBI was doing with the Brazilian government.
Okay.
So he actually got a visit from an FBI agent.
Whoa. Okay.
Like, hey, we're visiting you because the Brazilian government, wants to talk to you. So then he was like, he's well known now in the Congress here because of his story, they started an investigation.
Wow.
So he's been to, Tucker, Steven Crowder, these guys.
So like bigger, like newscasters kind of thing.
So, it was amazing to meet these guys.
Yeah.
And then today we have like a close group of 4 or 5 people who are really close.
Yeah.
I just had lunch with one of them before.
So, and that's from the book. Like it all started happening.
It all started with the book. Because the book opened the doors to one guy who interviewed me, and this guy introduced me to a lot of people.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in the book, you're talking like a radical or like not as popular of an opinion, but it's truth, I'm assuming.
It is actually a popular opinion because what happened in Brazil is they went, like there was a referendum many years ago where the population actually said, no, we do not want strict gun control.
Okay.
But then the government just ignored it and implemented it anyway.
Okay.
So like popularly...
So more for the people, not for the government.
The people like the concept.
Got it.
And that's why the book sold so well.
Nice.
It sold over 50,000 copies.
Hey, man. So that sounds like you were going for truth. So you're just going to shed light on what's going on.
Yeah, we just use data in the book, data from here, we use data from the FBI, everything that was available online.
Sure.
Nice. And I think that's the reason it sold really well.
Okay.
So, and this guy, including this guy that I told you about, Paulo, he called me he invited me to write a book with him.
Oh, recently?
Yeah, and we intend to publish that one in English, so you will get a copy.
There you go. That's
but that's all like I said, and this group gave me a lot of strength when I had to go through some tough times here.
Okay.
Especially when I had some situation in a partnership that I had.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And and Now that I work in a company here, I've been working with them for 3 years. That was also a prayer answer.
Wow.
Because I was going through so much with this partnership that ended.
Yeah.
And then I got this job with the company I'm with now.
Okay.
Which was it was great, really like. So I can tell you many.
Man, dude. So it sounds like you've been a creator. Like you've been able to take what is ever in your mind and be able to put it into paper, get it in front of the right people, which opens doors for you.
Exactly.
Right. Which then leads you, I guess, after that, after these doors open, you went to America. You came to America.
I came to America. Actually, I came in 2014.
Okay.
I had one book, the first book published. That one was successful, but not as much as the second one.
Okay.
And then 2015, I went back to Brazil for the great, the book signing, signing
cool.
evenings, those kind of stuff.
That's
and
cool.
Then it started to sell, but then I was here, and I was still doing a lot of translation because I also did that.
Yeah.
There are many books that I translated from English to Portuguese.
Wow.
But then at that point, I was focused on starting a company here.
Okay, yeah. And that's where the partnership sort of fell apart.
Yeah, so the partnership started well. I did have a couple of experiences with God during that time.
Really?
So one of them, for example. By the way, can I tell you one before that?
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
So I have three things that happened to me with God that were like life-changing.
Okay.
That I was like, yeah, God is watching me. So one of them was when we moved was a really tough beginning.
I can imagine.
My wife did not speak English, almost no English. We came here.
Did you have kids at the time?
No, I had no kids. Okay. But then she got pregnant with our first kid. Mm-hmm. And then she had to study at that time because our visa was tied to her education.
Gotcha.
And that time, she told me, "I don't want to go back to school. I want to be with our baby. He's going to be born in 2 months." And And then she was kind of away from God at that time. Okay. Yeah. We are both divorced, and we had some very bad situation in the churches we used to attend, where although both of us were left by our spouses, the church was like, you can't work here anymore.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you can't do this, or you can't do worship.
Wow.
So she was kind of angry, with the church.
Sure.
But then she said, hey, you know what? I made peace with God, and I prayed, and then I asked him to do something. So we don't need me to go back to the school anymore, and I can take care of our kids.
Okay.
And literally the next day, a guy calls me from the newspaper in Brazil.
Okay.
Where I used to write every week.
Okay, yeah.
So he tells me, hey, Flavio, I think you're going to be happy with this. We are going to apply for a journalist visa for you.
Okay.
And we're going to sponsor you.
Okay.
And the journalist visa was the best visa for me at that time.
Wow.
Then my wife didn't have to go to school anymore.
Wow. The next day?
Yeah.
Wow.
The next day. So that was one thing. And then the other thing, and this is for me was one of the most amazing. We were just buying our home, and then we had first kid, wanted to go to a bigger home, and then we went to one of these builders, and at that time they did not require you to put a lot of money down.
Okay.
Put like $2,000, I think, or $3,000.
Those
and they will hold,
Those are the days.
Those are the days. They would hold the home for you and say, you pay during closing.
Yeah. Wow.
So my visa was a journalist visa, which is a good visa for you, but it doesn't allow me to work on anything else than as a journalist for that specific newspaper.
Gotcha. Wow.
And I didn't have, that was a job that didn't pay me enough to get, to pay for the mortgage.
Right.
So I had to rely on some money that I had in Brazil. And
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was like, the mortgage company doesn't see, oh yeah, he has money here or there. Yeah, they just look at what you make.
Right.
So I don't know how, man. But at some point, the lady from the mortgage company said, hey, there's nothing we can do. We cannot approve you.
Wow.
Especially because it's missing a document here. And that document was like from immigration. I've been waiting for like 6-7 months. It was supposed to arrive in 3 months.
Wow.
But 7 months after, I didn't have it. Without that document, they could not, do the closing.
Wow.
So she said, there's nothing I can do, and you're going to lose the $3,000.
Dang.
Unfortunately. And then, man, like the house was being built, so we go there every week, and you dream with it.
Man, yeah.
And I remember that night I prayed and said, God, I need you to either give us peace that this is done, or I need a miracle.
Wow.
And then I called the lady the next day or 2 days, the other lady, not the financing one. I called the one from the builder.
Okay.
I say, hey, I just calling to see if I have to sign anything, because I was told that, there's no way to finance.
Right.
And then she says, what are you talking about? Your name is approved here.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I was like, really?
Wow.
And then, now this is the part that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, please.
The document that I needed arrived to me on the next day of the closing. Wow. So I closed the home. It's mine now.
Yeah.
And the document that I was supposed to need arrived.
Wow.
So that was for me, was like God saying, you could have gotten the document before, but I made it in a way that now
Wow.
You have the document, but you didn't need it because I did the miracle.
How amazing.
That was it's crazy, man.
Wow.
So those things give you a lot of strength to go through when sometimes you think God is silent. Times when you pray and you just can't feel anything. And maybe then you can just remember what happened and then say, I cannot doubt that He's with me because He proved so many times.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing. So it sounds like you've gone through multiple situations where, I guess, even in the US, right, where you're dealing with a significant hurdle, like your wife not wanting to go back to school, and then you getting the journalist visa to stay. It was here, right?
Yeah, it was here.
Stay here. Okay, so you got the journalist visa that next day, which is awesome. Like, that's so cool because you led it back straight to prayer, right? You prayed for some sort of sign or some sort of direction.
Yeah.
And He answered you the next day. And then the same thing with the house. Like, you were just, you tried to do everything you could, but you were missing that document.
Exactly.
And then the builder said, hold on, you can do it. You close. And then you got the document the next day. That's such an amazing sort of, is that correct?
Yeah, it's, and I told my wife, like, you can think as this is a coincidence, but that for me would be just lacking faith.
Right, correct.
Like, there's no coincidence on these things if you believe that all things together cooperate to our good.
Yeah.
Because we live by loving Jesus and trying to do what He would do, which is a tough thing, but
no, it's tough. I mean, and let's talk about that, because a lot of times when people, like myself, I think I told you a little bit about my story. We don't necessarily need to get too much into it because I want to help make this around you. But overall, just like a synopsis of it is like, I was saved last year, so like a year and a half ago at this point, and it got so much harder. life got instantly harder. Like initially when I began to walk in the faith and with Jesus. And so why don't we talk about that? Because, you know, in your faith and your, you know, because I think, you know, something that you told me is you were a pastor at one point.
Yeah, I studied to be, so
Yeah.
unlike you, I've been in
Yeah.
as a Christian for almost 40 years.
Wow. That's
Not
amazing.
40 years, actually. 41.
Wow.
I started going to church at 8. I gave my life to Jesus when I was 11
Okay.
during like a summer camp.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so I'm going to be 50 this year. So that's like 39 years ago. During this time, yes, I had times that I was closer to God, times that I was not so close.
Okay.
But one thing that you can see is that every time you get closer to Him, then it gets tougher.
Yes.
It gets easier in terms of having peace and being, you know, trustful, like trusting God. But at the same time, you get, you know, temptations, or
Right.
sometimes you get struggles. But as you move on the years with Jesus, then you, well, at least if you're smart enough, I think, or if you're humble enough, you learn that, man, you have to put everything on His shoulders. Like that was a preaching 2 weeks ago I was in a church, and it was so powerful. He took like the passage in Matthew where Jesus says,
Come unto me.
my burden is
Yeah.
light.
Yes. My yoke upon me is light or something.
Yeah, so I know the verse in Portuguese, but
Oh, okay.
so the pastor was saying, hey, that's the thing they put on the ox. It's like on the, you know,
Ah, yeah.
it's the thing that
collar.
unites them
Okay.
so they can go together. And then Jesus says, hey, you know what? I'm here. You're here. But this thing on our, it's the weight is on me. So
Wow.
it's like we just have to learn that thing as quick as possible.
That's amazing. So you've been in the faith for a long time, like 39 years.
39 years.
That's amazing. Like that really is amazing. And it sounds like you've also gone through those periods of struggle where the closer you get to God, right? Like what you said, the closer you get to God, the harder things become. Whether that means the enemy attacks or whether that means, you know, obstacles come your way, right?
Yeah.
You know, relationships start falling apart, you know, separation begins to happen, isolation, you know, various kinds of things begin to happen. But would you be the person you are today without God?
No. I am very aware that, like Paul said that he had like, how do you call that? Again, I know the verses in Portuguese, but
Hey, you're good.
he has the thing that bothers him, which we don't know.
Okay.
He never said what was it,
Okay.
but he said he had it, and he prayed many times to God to take it away. And then he hears the answer, my grace is enough. Just stop asking for that. My grace is enough.
Wow.
So what I learned is that I have my dark side, which is the area in my life that I know if I didn't have Jesus, it was only Jesus and the fear of God,
Yeah.
of making God
Disappointment. Yeah. Shame.
I would have gone crazy on those things, I think. And I think everyone has that.
Yeah.
Some people have with money, some people have with sex, some people have, you know, you have your weak spot. And I think that's where you would really go down if you don't have Jesus. Yeah.
So you're telling me. I was the guy that literally didn't have Jesus in my whole life, and it was going down. It was going to the end, down to the abyss, and it was very much not where it needs to be. And so I agree with you 100%. Jesus has turned my life around instantly, and it's been hard. It's been significantly harder. Like just catching up to where I need to be. You know, it's just like everything's so condensed. And like even this podcast, the podcast alone, right? This is not something I asked for. This office is not something I asked for. I didn't ask for this, but he gave it to me, and I just had to be faithful and continue to walk. And now he's given me this platform to help bring to light like, for example, your story, right? Where you're sharing the miracles of God. And that's going to be super powerful, you know? And so let me ask you, in business, a lot of people will be like, when I was of the world, right? This is my second business, right? When I was of the world before Jesus, I used to think like, well, you know, if I mention God or if I mention Jesus in my business, like then everything's going to like fall apart, or like people will not like me, or whatever it is. Or, you know, like it's just not a good thing, because it's like they say, like, don't talk about politics or business or God or religion, right? In business. But from your experience, and you know, from what you've been in the faith for a long time, how would you recommend somebody who wants to allow God to lead their business, but you know, is a little afraid to just go all in and let go to God?
So I'm in sales now, and what you see in sales is usually a lot of motivational things that come just from our, you know, our manly part. Like,
oh yeah,
it's human.
Okay.
So people in sales will usually point to very successful people that have their mantras, they have their teachings, and that's one thing that I see, like, you know, where I work. There are some Christian guys there.
Amazing.
Yeah, including my team. And it's very nice that we have our own little group chat.
Okay.
Where, you know, of course, that for the whole team, the company cannot just start, hey guys, let's read the Bible about sales.
Right.
But then when we are together, we encourage each other with, you know,
verses,
Bible and prayer.
Wow.
And I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure that we are the top salespeople there.
Out of the whole company.
Of the company.
Wow.
But what I can tell anyone that is listening and it's starting a business is, today I have no shame or no second thoughts about, you know, talking about God in my door knocks. It has opened so many doors for me.
Wow. And
I literally knock on doors sometimes.
Yeah.
So it never backfired.
Okay. So that's like a fear, it's a limiting belief, or maybe some people may have.
Of course, you gotta have, you know, wisdom. You're not gonna walk into, I don't know, man, like the Muslim center, started talking about Jesus.
That's true. Yeah, you're not welcome there to do that.
It's like just common sense, but
yeah, makes sense.
It's amazing that even like my clients, many of them, we start to connect, and then boom, oh, you were a believer. Like literally Saturday, this guy who just became my client, I sold the machine like two weeks ago. He sends me a text, say, hey man, I'm praying for you. If you want to go to my church this weekend, it starts at this time, and it would be a pleasure. So you see, like, then you start to see that our brothers and sisters are around. It's just that many of them are sometimes kind of like secret agents. Yeah, sure. But once you pull them, they'll open up, and I don't want to make my faith as an object of, you know, sales.
Of course.
But you can have you can be successful being a Christian and being openly a Christian.
That's amazing.
I don't think you have to hide that. And man, if someone doesn't want to do business with you because you're a Christian, God will provide you 3 Christians.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I love that.
In place of that person.
Very much.
And I'm pretty sure you know business that are ran under, you know, on top of Christian principles. The owners are, you know, Christian, and it's like, does anyone doesn't go to Hobby Lobby because they are Christian and don't open on Sundays or anything. Like,
Right. Okay.
that's what I think. I think you
I love that.
you cannot be ashamed of God.
No, absolutely not. I agree with 100%. And I love the concept, and I mentioned it a couple times. But the reason why this podcast is called God's Business Podcast is, for me and my business at least, like, I don't believe I'm running my business. I believe that God's running my business. And it's like, we're running God's business. And so if we're running, because he gave me my company name, he gave me this podcast name, he gave me all of this. And so I'm just stewarding that in his business. Like,
stewardship.
Stewardship, right?
That's the point.
Yeah. And so I believe that if God gives me my business, same for you, if God gives you your role, your leadership, and the skills that you have and the role that you are in right now, what's to say God won't give you your clients?
Exactly.
What's to say God won't give you your people that you're meant to serve? And that's exactly what happens in me and my business. Is like, he's given me more people that are Christian than not. And the people who are not necessarily followers, like, they'll fall off. They'll just like come in and fall off. People who are lacking in faith, they'll come in and then they'll fall off. But the people who have faith and who are, steadfast in their belief of Jesus and seeking his righteousness and kingdom first, is like, it's interesting to see that. And so it sounds like it's a similar path for you.
It is, and I'll tell you, like, I firmly believe that God puts you in places just so you can be an example, right?
Yeah.
That's our way of preaching.
Yeah.
Being light and being salt.
Yeah.
And then the biggest challenge for any Christian in daily life is you got to be a good example.
Amazing. Yeah.
I don't think I think you'd better be one of those secret agents than a guy that screams that he's Christian.
Right.
But then he's doing all kinds of stuff.
Right.
That really people say, really?
Yeah. Right.
Like, you really call yourself like a follower of Jesus? Like, why are you doing this then?
Yeah.
Why are you acting like this? This is like not. So that should, for me, it's the challenge, not to do harm to the name of Jesus.
Love it. That's a burden right there. Like, even that, right? That's like the stewarding, like the grace.
Yeah.
Right. You're stewarding the grace itself. And so, like, you're very much, I mean, I'm not an expert at all. Like, if anything, I'm like newer to the faith.
You're the newbie.
I'm the newbie that, like, reads the Bible every day, that just consistently tries to seek, and understand what his calling or what he's seeking from me every day. And so I'm the newbie. But that being said, it's like, if we're with God, who can be against us? And if he's giving us this assignment, who can be against us? Like, of course it's going to be hard. And of course things will be like a little difficult, but very much an opportunity for a lot of business owners to really take the concept of change yourself on the inside, then that will reflect on the outside. And so, like, live your life according to how he commands us to.
Exactly.
And then everything will fall in place.
There was a pastor that I liked a lot in Brazil. There is. He's still there. He's still alive.
Yeah.
But he used to say all the time, people will say, don't look to me, look to Jesus, because he's the perfect one. But if you go to the Bible, Paul says, look to me, because I'm working to look like Jesus.
There you go.
So you can use me as an example. Now, that's the level of commitment that we should have in our business, that people will say, hey, company ABC, these guys are the best to do business with.
Right.
They are correct. They have character.
Yeah.
They fulfill their word. They're not scammers at all.
Right.
And that shows. Like, you just see that, this company must be run by a faithful guy.
That's amazing. Character, integrity.
Yeah,
all these sort of fruits of the spirit, in a way, like kindness and the various things will manifest through your business. It sounds like what you're saying.
That's it. Yeah, you got the word. The fruits of the Spirit, I think they will just overflow the owner and the team into the company.
I love it.
The company reputation.
That's amazing. I love that. All right. So why don't you, while we wrap up a little bit, why don't you, is there anything that you want to give advice to anyone who's a aspiring entrepreneur, somebody who's wanting to get into sales, somebody who currently is a leader in their industry, but, is seeking to have the Lord come into their business more, is there, or any other advice that you'd like to give someone to help them?
Yes. One thing that really changed my trajectory some time ago is that I was always very, very correct in my contributions to my local church.
Okay.
At some point, I stopped giving. Okay. And then I realized that things were not going well.
Wow. Okay.
You can even make money, but it looks like the money is never enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So some time ago, like over a year ago, I had I listened to a message in the church, and that touched me. Like, hey, I gotta start giving because God is. He is gracious and He gave us everything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm not advocating for any kind of church here, but I've been to a small church, to the board, and I know that any human institution needs money to run, their programs to help people.
Right, right.
So the moment I started to give, my life in sales really, took a new step.
I love
that. And then another thing that I do is,
Oh, you're good.
I always try to have 2 minutes before I go into any meeting with the client, just pray for it before. Wow. Ask to God give me the good words. It's like a little moment of reflection because the daily routine is so crazy, man. You just drive here, drive there,
for sure.
Step in, step out, that's the hardest thing for me. Every morning I tell God, today I'm gonna have more little praying moments.
Right.
But the day goes by, and it's so hard to stop for 2 minutes. So don't do like I do. Just get some time with God. Yeah. It's not only in the morning, 5 minutes, it's not only one before going to sleep. Yeah. It's the constant praying that I believe it's still something I have to develop to make my life even more full of the Spirit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you bring God in your life throughout the day, and you bring God in your business throughout the day to help you re-energize your spirit to go into other aspects of a new sales meeting or a new meeting itself. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, just because humanly speaking, you can have as much confidence as you want, but I just feel that if I'm doing it on my own, it's so much harder. Right. And then if I fail, man, that is a pressure, right? Yeah. If you fail on your own, that's something you're going to remember. Right. Now, if something doesn't go well and you're sure that God was with you, then you know that there's a better plan. Wow. That's what I think.
I love that. And that literally takes the burden off your shoulders. And it's like, hey, if it wasn't meant to be, God was with you. And it just wasn't meant to be for you.
I had a recent experience with this. I was thinking about starting a business for my wife. We found good partners who were good friends. And we were looking at some specific sector, and we were looking at the numbers for some stores of these sectors, and it's like, this is very good, man. This is awesome. And then we found a location that was like, oh, this is perfect. Wow. But then we started praying,
Oh, amazing.
This has to go by God's approval.
Right.
Man, nothing worked.
Nothing worked.
Nothing. So everything went south. Like,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
then 2 months later, the guy who sold me the idea, because the company was doing so well, he said, man, so glad that you didn't start this. Because everything changed in this market now.
Wow.
Because this company from Miami is just pressuring the prices down like this, like that. Our margins dropped like 70%.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by you bringing him in before any decision.
I told like, hey God, if this is good, please open the door. If it's not, please don't open it.
Wow.
Please shut it out.
He shut it out.
He shut it out. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Wow. Dude, that's awesome. That's a great story. And it's not a story. It's a great expression of how God has worked in your life, personally and professionally. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Is there a specific? I always like to ask. Is there like a specific Bible verse or a specific kind of like maybe like a verse from the Bible that you know and you remind yourself of?
Yeah.
Because
I'm gonna get it here because,
please.
as I said, I know in Portuguese.
Yeah, no worries.
But then let me get the version in English.
Yeah.
So it's.
I'm always so curious because so far it's been a lot of different verses which they've been so powerful.
So the verse. Oh, here it is. So let me get the Bible in English. Romans 8:28.
Okay.
And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose.
Wow.
So as long as I believe, as long as I love God, that's what I understand. As long as I love God and I trust his will to my purpose,
Right.
then he will take even my bad decisions. And even if I have to suffer the consequences, which is very common, right?
Yeah.
Many times he doesn't remove the consequences.
Right.
But in the end, he will get the pieces together and do something good.
Wow.
So that's why I believe.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's I gonna say? And then the last thing I like to do before we wrap up is if you can look at the camera and then and introduce yourself in a fun way, or introduce yourself however you'd like. Your first name, last name, and then say, "This is God's Business Podcast." That'd be great.
Just my first name, last name?
You could say Flavio, author, this, that, the other, or whatever, however you like to pitch yourself. First name, last name. This is God's Business Podcast.
So I'm Flavio Quintela, engineer, writer, sales guy, all you can imagine. And this is God's Business Podcast.
Awesome, man. Good job. Thank you.
Hey, Johnson.
What'd you think?
I love it, man.
You loved it?
I hope people don't think it's my speaking was boring or anything.
Dude, no, 44 minutes